Hi, and welcome to this episode of Your Future, Your Finances. I'm your host, Brian Kuhn. We're talking about areas of law today. My guest is Evan Koslow, a family law attorney. We're going to talk all about mediation, divorce, and other issues that sometimes happen with families. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm originally from New Jersey, but been in the D.C., Annapolis, Baltimore area since 2001. Got two small kids, a 4.5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, where my wife reins them in as much as she possibly can.
Yep.
And have been practicing family law as an attorney for 6 years, but been in the family law realm for 13. Started off in the Rockville, Montgomery County area, was in Prince George's County for a couple of years, and in the last 5 years I've been in Annapolis.
So family law, why that area of law?
Since a very young age, I knew I wanted to practice law, but obviously being young, you don't know exactly what type of laws are around. And so when I was in college, I had an opportunity to intern for a juvenile judge in Montgomery County. And I told her that I really wanted to help children and be able to advocate for them. And she basically was saying, if you want to help children but make money at the same time, instead of doing juvenile law, you should do family law, because that encompasses individuals going through divorce or a custody dispute if they were never married, and you could help not only advocate for the child but potentially get the family off into a better situation.
Mm-hmm. And the firm you're with, tell us a little about them.
It's my own firm, Koslow Law Firm, based in Annapolis, Maryland, although I practice throughout the state of Maryland as far north as Baltimore County, and then Calvert County, Charles County in the south, Montgomery County, and Frederick County in the northwest area. I'm a solo practitioner, although I do have a admin and a receptionist that helps out.
Mm-hmm. So in the state of Maryland, what's going on in the area of family law? Are there changes to the laws?
Well, yeah, this year there has only been one specific change. You used to, starting October 1st of this year, you're no longer going to need to have a corroborating witness to testify on your behalf that the two of you and your spouse have no longer lived together for the past year. So the current law right now is if you have minor children and there's no fault ground, meaning a party didn't commit adultery or there's no abuse allegations, then you have to wait 1 year from the date that you and your spouse has separated and had no sexual relations before you could file for divorce. And then once you file, even if it's uncontested and you and your spouse want to get divorced, you currently need a corroborating witness to testify that you separated on X date, you still are separated, and you've had no sexual relations during that time frame. Starting October 1st of this year, you're no longer going to need that individual to testify on your behalf. Last year, in October of 2015, the courts did away with needing a 1-year separation if you have no minor children and there's a global agreement resolving all issues. So then you could, once that agreement is signed, immediately file for divorce and get divorced fairly quickly within 2 or 3 months.
And is that the way it is most of the time? I mean, between contested or not contested?
The most common divorce grounds are the 12-month separation. So that definitely is there unless you could prove adultery. It's extremely difficult to prove adultery, and even abuse, unless the abuse is physical, to prove. So even if you may have a ground for adultery or abuse, it's just so much easier to go the 12-month route, and it's going to be even more so easier now that you don't need a corroborating witness.
And there's another thing within family law, mediation. So what's mediation?
So mediation is alternative to going to court, or the court likes to call ADR, alternative dispute resolution. And so instead of having a judge make a decision for you after going 9 months to a year from the date of filing to getting a decision, you could go to a neutral third party. It could be an attorney, so I'm an attorney and a mediator, and depending on what I'm retained for, I would use whatever hat. There also are retired judges that do mediation, and so what it is a neutral third party that has no dog in the fight, that just tries to come up with creative ideas, thinking outside of the box to see if they could be resolved on your own. Because it's always so much better for the parties to be able to make the decision, even if they don't 100% like the decision, at least they're in control of making it, unlike going to a judge, being limited on the time that you have in front of the judge, being limited on the type of information that could be presented to the judge, and then saying, okay, make a decision for me. So mediation is just another route for that.
More favorable as in like financially more favorable or cheaper?
It definitely can be. It all depends on when in the process you do it. In Maryland, if there's no domestic violence allegations and you have minor children, you're going to be required to go to mediation, to 2-hour sessions. But a lot of parties sometimes, if they can't resolve it amicably before going to court, they will decide to go do mediation even before filing to see if they can get somebody to help them out.
Mm-hmm. So if somebody's going into this process, and so they're in your office, how does that typically work? What do you advise them to do?
So I give it as almost like a mini 101 on family law. I give them about an hour, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little less, depending on what the situation is. And I gather all the information that they have relating to their specific situation, depending on if it's divorce or if it's just custody, will really factor in where the conversation goes. And at the end of that conversation, the one thing that I ask my potential clients is, although I know you don't know the law, if you had a magic wand, how do you see this case getting resolved? And the reason why I ask that before I give them my opinion as to the worst case, best case scenario is to see how realistic they are. And a lot of times they're pretty spot on what they want to get and what they could get. So after I get that from them, I go through the process of, okay, if this went to court, this is what the court could or couldn't do, or this is what the court likely would do or likely wouldn't do. But if you settle outside of the court, you basically have an arsenal as to how you resolve it, because the court, especially when it comes to kids, the courts are going to sign off if two parents are able to agree, even if they being the court, would not have necessarily done it that exact way because it's not traditional.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we got to take a break. Good information. We're going to touch on that a little bit more. We'll be right back. We're talking with Evan Koslow, family law attorney. I'm your host, Brian Kuhn, on Your Future, Your Finances.